All right, I call to order the negotiations between the North Andover School Committee and the North Andover Professional Support Association. So I think we're going to start by just kind of going around and introducing ourselves again so that the public all knows who is here and present. So do we want to start? I don't care which starting we start on. You want to start with Greg? You want to start and then we'll go around?
Greg Landry, Director of Personnel and Operations.
Lynn O'Neill, Director of Special Education.
Christine O'Connor, Town Council.
Kelly Cormier, member of the school committee and a Franklin mom.
Alyssa Sams, a member of the school committee and Thompson mom.
Pam Lathrop, Superintendent of Schools.
Kristen Ando, Assistant Superintendent, Teaching and Learning.
Gail Dowd, Interim Finance Director. Allie Rafali, Teaching Assistant at the Thompson School, and I'm the Membership Chair.
Jane Egan, Teaching Assistant at the ABCC and the Co-Chair of the Teaching Assistants.
Debbie Rafali, I'm a Teaching Assistant at the North Andover Middle School, and I'm also the Co-Chair of the Teaching Assistant Unit.
I'm Kevin Tierney. I'm a Field Representative Organizer for the Massachusetts Teachers Association, working with the North Andover Teachers Association.
Juliet Darman, I'm a teacher in North Andover, at the North Andover High School, but I'm also the president of the North Andover Teachers Association.
Hi, I'm Casey Kaplis. I'm a RISE Program TA at the Franklin Elementary School.
Eric Denoncourt, Teaching Assistant at North Andover Middle School.
Laura Queenan, a Teaching Assistant at the North Andover High School.
And just for clarity, the TA bargaining unit is part of the North Andover Teachers Association. I know the name of what you read at the beginning. I think that's an archaic holdover from a time before they were one big union, but just
Maybe we'll change the name.
for the record, they are the Unit C of NATA.
Okay. All right. We'll go into the executive ground rules. I think, Chris, you're going to talk about that?
So we have, the parties have worked on putting together some ground rules, and I think everyone's had an opportunity at this point to review them. And unless there are any further questions, we can execute them. If we want to substantively walk through the ground rules, that's fine too. There's they're fairly limited.
Yeah, I unless anybody on our team objects, I think we came to a good agreement on these, and we're ready to sign if you guys want to do that.
Yeah,
Sure.
sure.
Let's take a moment, and we have a couple of clean copies here. And
Oh, beautiful.
they can get executed.
No, we just have the committee chair and Nate as bargaining chair to sign. Do you have a copy, Kevin?
Oh, thank you. It's for you. You can sign. You or Jane. I think you just signed 2 copies, so we keep one, they keep one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have to give them an executed copy.
We need Joe to sign.
The school committee
okay,
chair
for
will
the
sign,
chair.
Joe will sign it,
Okay.
and then we'll
And
get
then
it
we'll
back.
get it back.
But, okay,
Or do you want,
I think one of you could sign for the ground rules for,
do you want me to sign, can I sign as vice chair?
sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's in reference to
Okay.
the chair of this subcommittee.
Subcommittee, all right.
Yeah.
Give this back to them.
Go to who's?
We'll just keep that. I'll give
Yeah,
it to
Who
Michelle.
keeps the paper? Who's responsible?
I'll put the good one there.
Sure.
Put this one in
I'll scan it.
Great. All right. And I know the school committee has prepared an opening statement. Did you guys also have an opening statement you want to give?
You guys can proceed.
All right, so good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone here, those around the table, the two separate tables here, and those observing at home and in person. Both parties are here this afternoon to begin a process that is vital to the health of North Andover Public Schools. The school committee subcommittee, that's a long term, but thanks the union for agreeing to these open public bargaining sessions. We hope this format will prove beneficial to both sides and informative to those observing at home. Because this is a formal collective bargaining session, we want to remind everyone that while the public is invited to watch the negotiations in the room and at home, we ask that you remain silent during these sessions. I also want to touch on the spirit of these talks. The school committee subcommittee, another long term there, is committed to following our longstanding practice of professional courtesy and fostering relationships. This means we will not engage in disparaging remarks, neither here at the table nor in the public sphere. Finally, we view our teaching assistants as essential partners for the betterment of our schools and our students' education. We are committed to keeping the tone respectful and to focus on the facts and what's best for our students. We enter these negotiations with the goal of reaching a fair and sustainable agreement that supports our staff and our students. Thank you for being here. Let's get to work.
Excellent. And I mean, I'll just speak on behalf of, from the union's perspective, you know, we welcome the opportunity to negotiate in such a public and transparent way. We think this is a great model that should be replicated. We're excited to engage with the committee. We know that the public schools here in North Andover across the state are where we're hopefully incubating our democracy, and the next generation of our society is being developed here as we speak, and the future of North Andover and the state and hopefully this country is learning and growing right now. And I think this is an important thing. I think the team, when you guys first proposed doing it this way, was really excited for that opportunity, because if nothing else, I think we're modeling good democratic values for the community, for our students, and negotiations can get intense at times. Of course, we know that coming in, but we agree that our intention here is to come to agreements, come to a mutual understanding, and get to work on building the best school system and the state that has the best public education system on planet Earth. So we're ready to go.
Thank you.
With that, we have some initial proposals today to share with all of you. Before we dive into that, we were hoping to share also some initial data that we've compiled around municipal finance in North Andover. So if that's okay, this is just sort of a beginning starter point, but we wanted the committee to see the numbers we've been looking at, get a sense of what our understanding and study has been of the status in North Andover, because obviously funding is a big topic when we come to bargaining. That's going to be one of the things that we're going to be sort of rubbing up against each other on, is the ability to fund some of the proposals that we're going to present. So if that's okay, we'd love to start and just walk you through that report. So I don't know how we want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Just make sure they get the 8 they need at least. I think that's enough. And then if we want to make sure everybody has one here. And then I have extras for the crowd as well. Here, and if everybody just wants to take, we'll give one to each of them and yourself.
We should share.
Do you have enough?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
For those at home watching, probably one of the things, Kevin, we should probably all both of us do, and we just didn't think about this, is for anything that we're sharing, so that we do have electronically, so we can share it at home for people watching, can see it. Just going for the,
I have electronic copy.
I mean,
I know
we-
I told you before.
We
I
can-
didn't need
I
a
mean, do
TV,
we-
but I
if we want, we can put it up, that way people at home watch it, and that way
Sure.
it gets, people can see it.
yeah.
think that
Or we
makes
can
Yeah.
link to the agenda ahead of time if you ever need us to do.
Yeah, we can do that too.
Okay.
Yeah,
You can have a live.
Oh, okay. Just
that way it
plugs
just
right in.
helps for anyone at home.
Right, is that it?
Yeah, that's,
that should.
that should be it. One always takes care of it. One-
I know this must be a
There we go.
highly rated event. Millions of viewers at home.
Wait till you see the YouTube hits. Most people we've had in the room in a while.
I know. I mean,
I don't usually have
I watch
anybody.
a lot of my school committee meetings for my town on Facebook Live. Is where they stream. Okay, so this is a this is not the cleanest way to present these numbers, and we I think our intention would be at our April meeting we would have a more aesthetically pleasing presentation of some of this information, as well as additional information that we've been thinking about in terms of finance and comps and issues as it relates to some of the ways in which we believe the town could fund some of the proposals we're going to present. But just to give an overview of sort of what we're looking at, and I know you guys will have towns. I know there's a list of towns that you generally use for comps, and I know this is not that list, so I'm not claiming that this is the capital T comps list, and we will be happy to look at that list and work within that list as well. But this was just taking quickly a few towns around North Andover, towns that have similar either student populations, similar per capita income levels, similar tax rate as a percentage of income levels, different ways to break it up, and frankly, like similar sort of reputations in terms of having wonderful schools and a good public school system. But these are all regionally neighbors to North Andover, and not necessarily DESI DART districts, which I know are one way of compiling comp data. So this is more about North Andover, not the other towns that are listed here, but I think it's useful to just have a sense of what other towns look like with some of this information. So that first row, and on the left-hand side in green blocks, you can kind of see the subject headings. So just basic census data, looking at some other towns. Andover being your closest neighbor, former same municipality hundreds of years ago. At one point, you were all one big town, as well as Winchester, Tewksbury, Middleton, Boxford, Haverhill, Burlington, Danvers, Wakefield, and Beverly. So again, we're not saying this is our final list of comps that we're using. And as we start talking about salary comps and other things, I'm sure we can figure out a list that makes sense. Spending on education trends. So this data was extracted mainly through the state agencies that track this data. The Division of Local Services, DESI's website are the two main places we've acquired this, as well as some of the information that the town provides for its annual budget cycle from last year. Notably, the fiscal 26, the current fiscal year, budget stuff has not been uploaded into the state website yet for any municipalities. So, I think that should be happening soon. That usually happens by April. So for the school spending trends, we're missing that data. I think both of us, I know you are intimately aware with the budget, all of you at that table for this school year. We are very familiar with it as well, and the budget we ended up with. And so this is just to show trends over time. And when we're looking at our numbers here for things like per pupil spending, we're working with what DESE has available on its website. So if you have updated numbers or figures that you could share with us, we'd be more than happy to review it. We would love that, actually.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So from like number 9 down to like 24, that block that you have up there, that is just North Andover data.
Correct. That was actually going to be the next thing I said. So each of those fiscal years, this is specifically for North Andover. When the other towns we have listed here are being compared, you'll see they have like an orange sort of shading to differentiate it, and they're clearly labeled. So if we look at the next bucket there, spending on education comps, starting on row 25, we can see the actual net school spending as a percentage of required net school spending. So this is the minimum amount a district is required by the state to spend on education. And then this is the total that town or municipality or school system ended up spending. The average in Massachusetts is close to 30% above minimum spending. So, it is almost a certainty most towns spend above the minimum requirement. And if you look through this list, you can see that most of these towns, like North Andover, who spends about 28%, which is actually up a little bit from last year's figures that we had, which I think were closer to 25%, above the minimum requirement. But if you look at next door in a town like Andover, they're at close to 68% above minimum, Winchester 44%, even Tewksbury 37%, Middleton 73%, Boxer 76%, Haverhill's at 106. The difference between Haverhill and a lot of these other towns is the amount of their school budget, which comes from Chapter 70, from state funding, as a percentage of their total budget, is much, much higher than most of the other suburban towns on this list. But you can go across the row and see the total percentage above the minimum. So another similar town, it's actually City, Beverly, also at 28% above the minimum. So as we look at this, we say, okay, well, to a lot of towns around us, we spend above the minimum, but we don't spend nearly as much on education as do some of the other towns around us. When we look at per pupil spending, which is not a perfect data point either, it's one of many that should be considered, because there's a lot of factors that go into per pupil spending and what expenses the school district covers versus the municipality is always part of that equation. But when we look at the total per pupil spending, I think the state average this year is around $23,000 per pupil. North Andover is at $19,300, and we can see the other towns that we had listed there are for the most part above that, some significantly so. Andover's at 24,000, almost 24,500. You can see even places like Haverhill are at over 20,000. Burlington all the way up to 27,000, almost 28,000. So another factor for us to consider in terms of education funding and spending, which brings us to the next bucket, which is ability to pay. So we think, from our perspective, when you look at spending above the minimum, per pupil spending, we think, well, there's an opportunity for North Andover to invest more in the schools than a lot of its neighbors currently are. But how could it do that, right? Money must be tight. And in a lot of towns and cities around you, it really is very, very tight. North Andover is flourishing economically, according to a lot of the data. So in terms of your tax levy capacity, and this is the ability to which you can spend before you need an override, last year, despite all of the consternation and conflict around particularly the school budget, but the total town budget, and despite an act at town meeting from from the general voting population to increase the school budget by $1 million or so, the town still came in well under its levy limit, a significant degree under its levy limit by, almost $5.5 million in excess levy capacity. So that's, the ability the town had to collect revenue before it would have to trigger a Proposition 2.5 override vote to do that. So it has and it continues to have a pretty significant levy ceiling, and that's been the case the last at least 5 years, 4 or 5 years. And when you look at that trend, in comparison to a lot of the other towns, right? If you look at the excess levy capacity as a percentage of the total levy limit, so basically how much levy room they have as a percentage, you can see North Andover is almost 5% of its total budget in excess levy capacity, whereas most of the towns around you are much more constrained in their ability to do that. So, a place like Andover, less than 1% from its levy ceiling. Winchester's even tighter than that. It is pretty much almost exactly dollar to dollar at its levy capacity. There are some, again, outliers, places like Burlington, where there's a huge amount in their tax base, variation and diversity in their tax base of how they collect revenue, not just property taxes. But a lot of the other towns that are very similar demographically, economically, in terms of its per capita income, places like Danvers and Wakefield are absolutely at that limit. So they don't have any room to do extra. They really would need a 2.5 override to fund anything more significantly. So, that's at the local level, the local revenue stream. Levy capacity primarily comes from, property taxes and whatever other business or sort of, new development and growth. North Andover has benefited from lots of new development and growth in the last 5 years, not the least of which the Amazon facility. So the other piece to look at is, well, what's coming in from the state for schools? There's been a lot of talk about state funding here, across the state, and rightly so. There's a lot of discussions right now. I was in a meeting with the Tri-Town School Union superintendent last week with some of their school committee members and union leaders, talking about what we can do to advocate together at the state level to get more state funding for our schools. And that I think that certainly nobody here is going to be anything but enthusiastic about that effort for North Andover as well. But it is important to note that there have been significant increases in state funding since the passage of the Student Opportunity Act. And in the last 5, 6, now 7 years, there's been sizable increases in state aid to North Andover as a result of changes in the funding formula. Last year, the Chapter 70 funding was over $13 million. In fiscal year 21, it was down around $9 million. So it's been almost a $4 million change in that time, which is a 42% increase. Looking at the governor's estimated budget from the cherry sheets that are now available on the mass.gov website, it's looking like the increases this year will be less significant than some years in the past, but not the lowest you've had in the last 5 years. Her budget, I believe, has you at around 13.5, maybe a little bit below that, 13.4 and change for this coming year. Now, that's just her budget proposal. The State House also has to bring their budget forward. The State Senate needs to bring their budget forward. Then they need to reconcile everything. There'll be lots of political jockeying going around, as there has been, as probably as old as the Commonwealth. But what the trend has been is actually the governor's budget has typically been a little bit lower than the final budget. That when the state legislature gets in it, there's generally been a little bit more in terms of Chapter 70 aid. Can't predict that. Obviously, we're not expecting you to count on promises and wishful thinking. But what does seem to have a lot of momentum right now is to get the per student minimum number back up to $150 per kid. So in the governor's budget right now, that's at $75 per student. Last year, it was at $150 per student. And so there is a lot of momentum right now. There's been a couple local legislative forums. There was one in Haverhill last week where a number of state reps and state senators were there. Some who weren't, including Senator Feingold, still reached out after the fact. And a lot of them are talking about including this in the state legislature budget. So can't guarantee it, have no idea how that's going to play out this spring at their budget level. But assuming that 150 returns as it was there last year, then that Chapter 70 number could be above 13.8 million, which would be a great thing. And that would be almost a 6% increase from the previous fiscal year for fiscal year 27. So at the floor right now, it looks like 13.4, 13.5 million in Chapter 70 next year, maybe as high as 13.8 if the minimum per student reimbursement or funding level comes through the State House, which again, last year was $150 per student. This year, the governor's setting it at $75 per student. There's a lot of hope and discussion right now in the State House that that would get back up to $150 per student. Looking at other financial factors in North Andover, ability to pay, other trends, there's a healthy amount year to year in North Andover, and has been for quite a long time, of free cash available. Obviously, the recommendation on free cash from any financial expert you'll ever talk to is that free cash should be spent on one-time expenses and not, salary overheads and recurring expenses and capital expenses, things that building projects, new technology investments, curriculum investments, things where you're making a one-time payment. So we're not suggesting, this is money that should all go into everybody's annual salaries. What it signifies, though, is to have such healthy free cash reserves year to year means usually that there's extra money coming in than what the municipality is budgeting for each year. And if you look at the bottom of this chart where it says local receipts, actual minus estimated, you can see the trend of local receipts. So this is things like excise taxes, cemetery fees, if the school is generating revenue from rental expenses or municipal buildings, things like extra revenue the city's putting in. And every year the town, sets a estimate for what they can expect in these additional revenue streams in addition to property taxes. And every year consistently in North Andover for at least the last decade, the town has had a lot of excess tax receipts. They've had a lot of surplus tax revenue. Most of that ends up going into free cash and gives you that healthy reserve. But on the right, we averaged out just the 5-year average, and it's around $4.5 million on average a year in surplus tax receipts that are coming in to the town. So one way, if you're saying, well, we're stretched thin, we can't afford X, Y, or Z, but then we have all this excess surplus tax revenue, is to increase the estimate of revenue coming in rather than underestimate every year and then get all this extra surplus money that gets thrown into a free cash account. In addition to that, there's also stabilization money. This has your main stabilization fund listed here. Again, this data is from the Department of Local Services, or Division of Local Services website. What this doesn't include is the special separate stabilization fund that exists in North Andover. North Andover is an outlier. Some municipalities have so much financial health that they have the ability to actually have multiple stabilization funds. So in addition to the main stabilization fund for the municipality, there is an additional one, and in our next presentation, we can talk more about the monies available there. Again, stabilization money to be allocated, requires an act of your town meeting to do that. I believe it's like a 2/3 vote whenever you allocate that money or spend that money, appropriate that money. But these are all financial factors and indicators. You have excess levy capacity, big healthy free cash reserves, $4.5 million on average a year of surplus taxes. A main stabilization fund with $6.5 million, another stabilization fund with over $5 million. It's a healthy, financially healthy town with a lot of growth and development. In our next presentation, we can talk specifically about some of that growth, and actually one of the most extraordinarily, relative to the size of your budget, growth in new development and in your tax base in the last 5 years. And so these economic indicators to us as a union, as public servants, to the community, and as a bargaining team interested in making a living wage and being able to say that one job is enough to make a living, and they think it's an important job that they do. These are some of the numbers we're looking at as a team to say, you know what, asking for a livable wage, asking for some of these basic needs and necessities for us to pay our gas bill, our rent, and put food on the table without working 2 or 3 or 4 jobs, to do it when we do a really important service for the students and families in North Andover, isn't too much to ask given the financial health and the resources available in a wonderful community like North Andover. So, the last few buckets there are looking at a percentage of free cash or a percentage of the main stabilization fund as a percentage of the total budget. The bottom there shows other financial indicators, particularly something that's always important to municipal governing bodies. I'm sure it's something when you guys meet with select board or finance committee, there's always talk about the bond rating, which is important because that allows you, when you take out debt, to have lower interest rates and pay less interest over time, which saves taxpayers thousands and sometimes millions of dollars. And you can see North Andover has a AAA rating. It has the best bond rating you can get, which shouldn't be surprising given the other numbers we've looked at. It's a very successful, well-run town, financially stable town, and healthy town. The last box there looks at the tax rate and average single-family tax bill, per capita income, average tax bill as a percentage of income, and the equalized property values per capita as of 2024. And we think this also shows that North Andover is not an outlier. It's not way ahead of the curve in terms of tax burden, and in fact, it has a relatively manageable tax burden right now on its population when compared to a lot of the other towns around you, with pretty high property values and a significant per capita income value as well. So this is not to say these numbers are the be-all and the end-all of everything. And like I said, we have more information and more data that we intend to share at subsequent negotiation sessions in a little bit more depth after we present to you some of our proposals and what we're thinking of and why we think it's possible for the town to fund what we're asking for. But we wanted to share with you just this general overview of what's some of the data we're looking at, how we're thinking about our proposals, because what we're going to present to you today are not just pulled out of thin air. We're not doing this in a cipher. This team thought long and hard about the proposals it's making, the importance of them to them and their members, and also the idea that these are not fantasy proposals, that we actually believe that you could say yes to what we're proposing today and fund the contract we're asking for. So that was the initial overview here of the finances. We have a package here of proposals that we can share. You can give it to them. I think that's enough for them. Yeah. I'll bring some. Okay. You guys ready for us to dive in? Okay. So the first page here is our idea of what we would consider housekeeping when we eventually do come to a final tentative agreement and we integrate the new language into the collective bargaining agreement. We're just agreeing that, we'll fix any typographical errors, titles, any other grammatical errors, obviously as long as it's mutually agreed upon, but we're not going to change any of the meaning or meat and bones of the contract. But, if there's things like pronoun nomenclature changes that we agree to change, stuff like that. Also, there are a few MOAs and side letters that the parties have come to an agreement on over a variety of topics in the last 3 years since the last time we came to a agreement. So we want to make sure those get integrated. Any of those changes are reflected in the contract. And we'll try to compile a list of those and get those together so we have our ducks in a row. But if you also want to make that attempt and just make sure that our notes match, Greg, just so we don't miss anything with regards to that. So this list may grow. You may have more suggestions for housekeeping. We may as negotiations continues, but that brings us to our first proposal here, which is around parental leave. Obviously, we have a lot of proposals to share with you today, and we have limited time to do that, and also it would be really difficult for all of us to go in depth into each of these topics today. So our plan is, as we move forward with some of these proposals, parental leave being one of them, at subsequent negotiation sessions, we'll kind of pick a few of these topics and a few of our proposals to dive deeper into our rationale, our thought behind why we're proposing it, and our case for why we think it's the right thing to do. This will certainly be one of those proposals, but currently right now in North Andover, for the Unit C contract, they have language that allows for up to 12 weeks of parental leave 4 weeks of which do not come from the individual's sick leave time. But if they're going to get paid for the full 12 weeks, then the other 8 weeks would need to come from their personal sick time. Our proposal here is to change it to get closer to what most of the state has access to in terms of the Paid Family Leave Act, which was passed by referendum back in 2018 or 2019, which allows for actually even more than 16 weeks for parental leave. It allows for, I think it's like 22 weeks for parental leave, and then another 20 or 24 weeks for bonding leave. We're proposing to increase the total parental leave time from 12 weeks to 16 consecutive work weeks for both birth and non-birthing parents, for either newborn, adoptive parents, or foster parents. A lot of that is current language that exists. Again, if it's bolded or struck through, that's what we're proposing change or be amended. If it's not bolded, then that is current text that exists in the collective bargaining agreement. We're proposing that the first 12 weeks of that 16-week period be not deducted from the employee's sick leave, but rather be an employer benefit, that the paid leave is covered primarily by the employer for those first 12 weeks. Right now, the current language allows that to be completed within 1 year of the birth or placement of a child in adoption, and must be completed in consecutive days. We're proposing to add the word work days in the middle there to make it clear that that's what we're talking about. In section D, again, we're asking the language be updated to reflect the 12-week proposal we're making for employer-paid parental leave, and then for the employee to be able to use an additional 4 weeks of accrued personal sick leave following that initial 12-week period, which again would be a total of 16 weeks. At the bottom, we're proposing a new subsection, section H. The parental leave may be extended by mutual agreement of the unit member and the superintendent in order that said member may return at an appropriate time in consideration of student programs, such as the beginning of a semester, beginning of a marking period, or after a vacation period. That's language that exists in some other contracts around you, and it's just, still gives the authority and ultimate decision-making there in the superintendent's hands, but sometimes operationally it makes more sense, rather than someone come back on, February 13th on a Wednesday to take 2 more days, come back after February break, and start fresh. But the additional language under that has to do with parental leave for adult dependents. This is the case where a unit member might have, as part of the placement or adoption of a physically or mentally disabled dependent between the ages of 18 and 23, that they would also be entitled to these paid leave benefits to help through that process. It's rare instances, but when these cases come up, currently there's no language in the contract to help address that. In addition to that, if someone wants to take a leave of absence without pay for a period of up to 1 year, the union's proposing that become a contractual right, and that the process for that would be giving at least 30 days notice prior to the beginning of the requested leave period to the superintendent. And again, date of return shall be set by mutual agreement, similar to that language up on H above for those year-long unpaid leaves. And then an extended parental adoption or foster leave. So this would be for all unit members, not just those with adult dependents. Following a parental leave described above, members could apply for an unpaid long-term parental or adoption leave under the following conditions. Again, 30-day notice. This unpaid leave could be extended up to a maximum of 2 years. For a lot of new parents, that time is necessary and important, and with the cost of daycare in this state, we have the highest average daycare costs in the country. The average right now in Massachusetts is, I believe it's $22,000 a year. A lot of places are much more than that if you're talking about infant care. And when you're looking at a bargaining unit right now whose starting pay is about that, it's, for a lot of them, it makes more sense to stay home and not work, and rather than come to work and then spend all of their income on childcare. So again, we're not proposing this as a paid leave. This would be a long-term unpaid leave to give them access to do that if they chose. There's some additional language there about, if a unit member is physically disabled in connection with pregnancy and delivery, certified by their medical provider, that they could use accumulated sick leave to the extent they have it in those circumstances. If that were the case, folks would need to provide, a fit to return letter, which is pretty standard practice. I'm sure Greg and the HR team probably do that on long-term FMLA leaves anyway. And then the last piece there is just about salary advancement. And if folks are on these extended leaves, that we're proposing they don't be frozen on steps if they've worked at least one half of the work year in which the leave commenced. So that there'd be some movement on the scale if they've hit that 90-day or 91-day mark in a school year. They wouldn't come back to the same step. So that's our parental leave proposal, and we'll do a proper presentation on that and go through a lot of our thinking behind that. And there is a lot of thinking behind it. It's not random numbers there. At a future bargaining session, and we can dive a lot deeper into the rationale. The next proposal 3 is around the probational and provisional period. Oh, yes, sorry.
Can I ask you a question on page 2H? Where their proposal is to extend, and I understand, like, so you're not coming back on an arbitrary day, but if that extension would be paid?
Under that part of it, yeah. That H is around, like I said, a couple days here or there, and it's really your prerogative to say, hey, operationally, I'd rather you come back. But yes, that would be paid. So,
Thank you.
Yep. So 3, probationary and provisional period. Right now in the Unit C contract, they have language which mimics the statutory requirements for Unit A, the teacher contract, which seems excessive for this unit. Many other education support professionals, teaching assistant units, paraprofessional units around the state have much shorter probationary periods. We think 3 years is excessively long, and it's really hard to hold on to people in this unit anyway. There's always a lot of job openings. They're already an egregiously underpaid group of workers, and a 3-year probationary period makes it really hard for some folks to want to stick around, to not have that basic just cause protection, right? For folks who may not be familiar, right, what that basically means is similar to teachers who can be non-renewed at the end of their first 3 years of teaching in a district without cause, which means they can be asked not to come back. So, we don't say they're being fired, but they're being let go, and the district does not have to provide any cause or reason. It's the longest probationary period of any public sector worker in the state by a long shot, and it's baked into the law, so it's not even really about the contract. For this group of workers, they're not subject to that statute, So they're governed by what's in their contract. And we would like to see the probationary period be reduced to a year. We still think a year is a lot of time for the employer to decide whether the person's a good fit or not, and would still give the employer a lot of time to say, hey, thanks but no thanks, we're going to go your separate way, without providing cause or reason. What this does not mean is after a year, that doesn't mean the districts cannot end the employment of any one of their workers. It would simply mean that they would need to demonstrate cause for that termination, that there would be due process, and the district would have to demonstrate an actual need to do it outside of just not being a good fit. So you'd still have that 1 year of probation. You'd still have that 1 year to decide on non-renewal. But after that, their employment would be more secure. And for a low-paid group of workers doing very difficult work with some of the highest need students every day in the district, and many of them being put in precarious situations all the time, that job security is important, that they know that they're not going to be arbitrarily or unfairly let go. So it's important to us to see a reduction in that probationary period, where we think 3 years is just too long for teaching assistants. Number 4 is a sick day incentive proposal, which we think would be mutually beneficial for the parties. This proposal calls for the exchange of sick days at the end of a year for members of this bargaining unit in exchange for a cash incentive. So in order to exchange days, there's a formula for days used versus days exchanged. If they use 0 sick days in a year, they can exchange 9 from their sick day personal accumulated leave and receive a payment of $1,500 at the end of the year as an incentive and a stipend. The district paying that out also has the benefit of reducing its unfunded liability of sick day accumulation, which is always a concern for the district's operations, right? As people accumulate sick leave, and especially for veteran teaching assistants who may have, well over 100 days, well over 150 sick days in the bank. This allows them to do something with those days besides, hopefully they don't need them to be sick. But if they're healthy and they can exchange some of those days and receive a financial incentive for not using days during the year. And you can see how the chart progresses for days used versus the amount they can exchange versus the financial incentive they may receive. So this would be brand new language for North Andover. It's modeled after language that exists in many other districts around you, so it's not innovative language. But it's something we think the parties could mutually benefit from, and it would also incentivize folks to hold on to days to be able to exchange at the end of the year for a little bit of cash. Family sick leave, we're proposing an amendment around this to take away the limitations on family sick days. Right now, they're limited to 10 days per school year. We're proposing to get rid of the limitation that they have sick time, and if they have to use it for themselves or a family member, it should make no difference. They need to use the sick day if they need to. We're also looking to expand the definition of family members that exists in this provision by adding children of siblings, meaning like nieces and nephews, and other dependents. There's a lot of ways families look in 2026. People have a lot of different family arrangements, and they don't always fit into the neat cookie cutter definitions of, Mad Men, Atomic Family, 1950s America. So, there's a lot of folks who are taking care of family members who may not fit those traditional definitions. So we want to make sure that they have access to those same same abilities. So we think anybody who's a dependent on you, you should be able to take care of. They depend on you. The next few proposals are around health and safety. And again, this is something we will discuss in much more detail at a future bargaining session around the issues regarding health and safety, especially for this bargaining unit, who is often in the front lines of being expected and are happy to, suit up every day and come to work and take care of some of the highest needs kiddos in North Andover. And they do it with a smile on their face and a pep in their step. And oftentimes they are putting themselves in really dangerous situations in order to put those kids' interests first, and they do it every time. What we're looking for here is really primarily, more than anything else, data collection and the ability for us to have some transparency around the realities. We're not necessarily prescribing solutions to some of the health and safety dangers that folks are coming in conflict with through their day-to-day, but to get a better handle on what the problems actually are, we think it's important to create a system to start tracking this internally, where the union has right to sit and see that data with the employer and review that and see if there are times where we need to come up with common solutions to common problems around health and safety. So the first piece here is there is a current health and safety provision. I think it was from the last CBA, and that it currently calls for the sharing of protocols and procedures to address challenging and/or violent student behaviors, with the goal of collaboratively evaluating where improvements can be achieved. That is still the goal of this new language. We just are trying to get a little more specific and again, a little more data-driven with that goal of collaboratively evaluating improvements, where improvements can be achieved, and ensuring that employees are clear about protocols and procedures. So this proposal, first and foremost, recognizes that both parties, the committee and the union, recognize employees' right to a safe working environment, including the right to be free from threats of violence, and recognize the employer's obligation to provide a safe learning environment for all students now, and safe working environments for all staff, teachers, and teaching assistants. To this end, we're asking the district provide the following. 1, meet annually with the union to review aggregate data from the prior year and develop mutually agreed upon district-wide staff reporting forms and protocols on classroom safety issues, including, but not limited to, A, a form for recording verbal, emotional, and/or physical abuse towards staff and/or other students. B, a form for tracking offenses, interventions, and consequences on an ongoing basis as each offense occurs. C, protocols for returning students who've been removed from the classroom for verbal, emotional, or physical abuse towards staff and/or other students. And D, the initial meeting on this subject will be scheduled and occur no later than 1 month following the ratification of this agreement. In subsequent years, this meeting will occur no later than October 1st. 2, we're asking for annual training to be provided to all staff on the use and purpose of the staff reporting functions. So these forms that we're saying we need to mutually develop together, there should be some training to the staff on how to use them, who they go to, what the follow-up is. 3, provide ongoing training on behavior management as needed. This is something I think we're already having some side discussions about, which I think is related to what we're talking about here in terms of sending some folks from Unit C to potentially get some training on behavior issues and maybe even earning their certificate as registered behavior technicians. 4, student-related incident reporting and response. Educators will report as soon as reasonably possible in writing to their respective principals all cases of workplace injury, including not limited to physical injury, incidents of sexual harassment and/or threats of assault suffered by them in connection with their employment, including but not limited to any violations of the district's acceptable use policy by which staff members are targeted. For folks unfamiliar, those are the policies around the use of digital communication, social media, things like that staff find themselves, in the crosshairs of Snapchats and TikToks and things that they're not even aware they're being filmed some days. I mean, especially in the middle and the high school levels, that happens quite a bit. And we'd ask that a copy of such a report will be forwarded by the principals to the superintendent within 1 business day, and a copy redacted for information subject to FERPA and the Massachusetts Student Records Law will be shared with the union president within 1 day. Again, this is about collecting data, creating some transparency, so we all know we're all sharing the same facts and information and coming up with a plan. Number 5 is if criminal or civil proceedings are brought against a unit member alleging that they committed an assault in connection with their employment, the committee will furnish legal counsel to defend them in such proceedings. If they request such assistance. If a unit member desires to bring criminal proceedings in connection with their employment, the committee will furnish counsel to represent them in such proceedings when such legal counsel is required. 6, student support. On a monthly basis, building management will report on student discipline and conduct referral and outcomes to the union, presumably the union reps, the building reps in that building. B, within 5 school days, building management will respond in writing to unit members who make student and discipline conduct referrals. And C, upon request of the union not to exceed 1 year, the North Andover School Committee or a member designated as a liaison shall meet with members of the union to hear educator feedback and trends regarding educational policy matters that are in the purview of the committee. In some places, they've even added non-voting members to health and safety subcommittees on school committee. In Revere, that's the case right now, where the union has 2 seats. They're non-voting members, but they are part of the school committee's health and safety subcommittee in order to achieve that goal. Proposal 7's around heat protocols in the building, environmentally safe schools. If classroom temperatures are above 85 degrees or below 60 degrees, the employer shall have a student half day, and bargaining unit employees shall have no loss of pay. That matters a lot for this group, who are hourly employees. Number 8 is around classroom support of education support professionals. So, we know this group's important. We know they're vital and necessary. And we think that there should be more staffing for this unit, especially at the lower grade levels. So we're proposing that the district assign a teaching assistant to each pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, and small learning group classes for the full school day, and that these teaching assistants will be in addition to any required one-on-one teaching assistant assignments for students that may already exist. So that, if someone's in there for a one-on-one, they're not also being considered, the TA for that class, that class has a separate TA. Number 9 is related to the proposals above. This is around emotional distress in the classroom. There's an increasing and alarmingly more student emotional distress in classrooms. Ask any of the folks in this unit, any of the folks in the teaching unit. I'm sure many of the administrators here would attest as well, particularly since COVID. It's become a much different world working in education, in public education. These episodes of dysregulation take many forms, including verbal and physical outbreaks. Sometimes these episodes cause classroom evacuations and have significant impact on student learning. The parties believe they must act together with family stakeholders to address these problems. As such, the employer shall do the following. A, provide therapy rooms or other forms of in-school support when students are having emotional distress. B, review policies and procedures with the North Andover School Committee to ensure students are receiving the correct and needed support. C, review operational procedures to ensure student discipline codes are fair and enforced. D, document and provide monthly distress reports, including any time there is physical harm to staff and or students when a classroom is evacuated. That's related to our previous proposal around reporting forms. E, additional training and meeting opportunities with school-based crisis teams. F, provide mental health staffing support to meet the needs of all students. And G, create a district-wide task force consisting of 12 people, 4 appointed by the superintendent, 4 appointed by the president of the union, and 4 parents, with 2 appointees made by the CPAC and PTO respectively. This committee will establish its own procedures for reviewing emotional distress and dysregulation reports, investigating health and safety issues brought to its attention, and making recommendations to the school committee and administration to remedy concerns brought to the task force. So again, that's a lot of new language around health and safety, a lot to break down and discuss. We will absolutely circle back at a future negotiation session with a more detailed presentation on the rationale behind that. On to toileting. So our 10th proposal today is with regards to toileting. There's current language in the contract that has been a source of conflict and disagreement with the union and the district, at least this year. I mean, it's also been unclear, sort of the meaning and intent of the language. So we're proposing to kind of delete and replace with new, simpler language around toileting. So our proposal is this: Section 1, toileting and daily diapers. Bargaining unit employees who are required to support students with toileting, daily diapering, or personal hygiene support shall be paid by North Andover Public Schools a lump sum representing the gross amount of $4,000, less applicable withholdings and deductions. This lump sum will be divided up evenly, $2,000 to be paid in December, $2,000 to be paid in June. Section 2, NAPS, when posting positions requiring toileting or daily diapers responsibility, will include diapering responsibility clearly outlined prior to hiring. This is an issue that keeps coming up for us. We have a lot of folks in the unit who say, that wasn't in my job description when I applied for this job. They never told me I was going to have to do this. And now I'm doing a lot of toileting and diapering, and they didn't sign up for that. Section 3, if a unit member currently works in the district and a new child entering the district who needs toileting and diapering is assigned to them, the unit member will be given the option to perform diapering responsibilities. If they decline the responsibility, they'll be reassigned to another assignment. They'll have another position. Section 4, if a unit member is receiving a toileting stipending, but their work assignment changes mid-year, that happens. Students' needs change. Students go out of the district. All sorts of things happen. Adjustments get made to their 504s, IEPs. They'll still receive the toileting stipend for that year, even if the assignment changes mid-year. The theory behind that is, again, these are low-paid workers. Every dollar counts to them as they're figuring out their expenses year to year. And ripping away that income mid-year is really hard for people to plan their lives around. In addition to the toileting stipend, we're also proposing a simplification of some of the other stipends that currently exist in the contract. Again, some of this language has been a source of conflict. It's been challenging to figure out who's getting paid what, how they're getting paid, who decides who gets these stipends. So we're proposing what we think is a simpler solution to this. A new stipend for specialized program and duties. Unit members assigned to specialized programs and/or duties shall receive a stipend of $6,000 in addition to their regular compensation. This lump sum will be divided up evenly, $3,000 in December, $3,000 in June. Unit members can receive either the toileting stipend or the specialized program and duties stipend, but never both. So we're still in agreement about that with the current language. If they're qualified to receive both stipends, they will receive the specialized program and duties stipend. What we're referring to when we say specialized programs and duty stipend is defined in Section C. 1, any unit member working in a substantially separate and or special program where the students are out of the general ed classroom at least 40% of the day. 2, any unit members working with medically fragile students where specialized feeding, toileting, post-preschool incontinence, or lifting of students is required. 3, any employee who's required to regularly implement ABA or similar behavioral interventions in their work with their assigned 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 students, or in a substantially sub-separate learning environment.
Kevin,
Yep.
on 11A, where you say a unit member assigned to specialized programs and/or duties, what does duties mean?
It means a lot of things, but particularly the definition below is how we're defining that.
Duties as in toileting.
Post preschool incontinence.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's what duties represents.
that could be part of those duties, but it could also be working again with a medically fragile student.
But not before or after school duty.
Not a before or after school duty.
Thank you.
Number 12, again, this is something we will circle back to at a future date. Workplace dignity and respect. This is all new language that we're proposing for the CBA. Rather than go through line by line, when we will definitely dig into it in more detail at a future meeting, the summation of it would simply be creating a well-defined workplace bullying prevention program, creating a means to remedy workplace conflicts, especially between employees and the employer, which aren't always easily defined in the contract, aren't always something about contract violations and the traditional grievance process, when they're more cultural and building based. We'll talk more about this in the future and the need for this, and it's not necessarily even directed at current conditions, but rather past experiences with administrators, and we can't always depend on having administration to work collaboratively with. So this school committee won't be here forever. This administration won't be here forever. So this is about language that would provide protection to employees to be able to make sure they have a safe working environment and they have healthy relationships and well-defined relationships with the employer and with their supervisors. 13 is about the expansion of some of the union and educator rights that currently exist in the contract. The first being around voluntary deductions for COPE and scholarship. This wouldn't cost the district anything. This is about the union just being able to access payroll deduction for its own internal business, specifically around their Committee on Political Education, and as well as their scholarship fund. So this would just enable members on a voluntary basis, if they wanted to be able to earmark deductions, $1 or $2 a paycheck, which would go into these union funds that the union has for either its political organizing or its scholarship funds. It gives out scholarships to students at the end of every year for a variety of reasons. B, unit members. This is language just around the state of our world today, and just to create some clear expectations and understandings in the contract around political speech and freedom and folks' rights to engage in their communities around that stuff. So unit members will be entitled to full rights of citizenship, and no political or religious activities of any unit member or the lack thereof will be grounds for any discipline or discrimination with respect to professional employment of such member. C, the private and personal life of...
I'm sorry. Just a question on B. So I'm just looking at the first part of that, and I think I initially had a question, but I think maybe I get it. I just want to make sure I understand what you mean by the unit members will be entitled to the full rights of citizenship. They can do what's legal, right? Is that what I think you're saying? Just basic good
Yeah,
Based-
and there is a balance between when you're a public servant and you're working for a public school system, right? There's a balance between your personal political freedoms and rights under the law with the operational needs of the district, right? And that's always, the legal test for, I think it's called the Pickering balancing test, and when these cases go in front of appeals and Supreme Court. This is really just around the fact that we want to make sure it's enshrined in the contract that because people decide to go to a No Kings rally on March 28th, that they're not going to be persecuted at their job for doing that, provided that it's not interfering with the operations of the school district.
Okay, thank you.
That's all. C, the private and personal life of the unit members not within the appropriate concern or attention of the committee, except as it may interfere with the members' responsibilities to and relationships with students. Again, we don't think that conflicts with any current school committee policies. We just want it to be clear in the contract that that's the case. D, the committee will provide the union with an advance copy of the agenda and any attached documents for each official committee meeting. E, an evergreen clause. The committee agrees that current policy relating to wages and hours and not otherwise changed by this agreement will remain in force and further agrees that to the extent reasonably feasible, policies relating to working conditions will also continue in force. What this has to do with is if a contract expires and we have not come to an agreement on a new collective bargaining agreement, it's well established in Massachusetts under labor law that things like salary advancement, wages, people keep getting paid when they come to work the following, September or whatever. And people advance to the next step and move to the next column. That's already well established under the law. What this is saying is the other terms of the contract, particularly the grievance procedure, which is always the piece that is up in the air, remain in full force and effect. In other words, that we still have the ability to kind of redress grievances that may occur, potential contractual violations that we identify with the employer while we continue bargaining for a new contract. So that in cases, for this, you guys did not expire last year, right? You guys, or last cycle, but I think the teachers did. And so we're just looking for this clause in the contract to make sure that basically the protections of the contract continue even during expiration, particularly around grievance arbitration.
Is there a question on D? So it's the committee will provide the union with advanced copies of agendas for each official committee meeting. Are you talking just school committee meetings?
Correct.
And so this would be in addition to posting it for the public? Because we post everything 48 hours in advance.
Correct. It would just be an email that gets sent to the union president.
Versus
as well.
looking online and getting the email online. Okay.
Yeah. It's nice. It makes things easy. But just part of the proposal we're making today for additional union rights. The last one here is for president release time, recognizing the goal of maintaining harmonious labor management relations and the need for mutual concerns to be addressed timely and professionally. The parties agree that the position of union president shall have full release time. In the event the union has co-presidents, such time will be divided equally. The union will reimburse the district for the first $25,000 of the total cost of this position annually. So currently, the NATA president has a release from duties, right?
And also
One period off. So we have a limited release time. That's right. We have the MOA around that. And I think, as Pam can attest, there's a lot of issues that come up quite a bit, and having a union officer able to confer with the administration on a daily basis, work together collaboratively with the administration, be able to have the ability to get around the different school buildings and meet with members, to investigate issues, help resolve conflicts. It's invaluable. And a lot of districts have, if not full release, at least half-time release for a president of a local this size. There are 600 NATA members?
What do you mean by full release?
Full-time release president position, so that she would be released full-time to be the president of NATA.
So-
The president of president of Unit C.
No, this would be for the president of NATA. So this would be, which is also the president of Unit C. So this isn't for the chair of the unit, this is for the president. That could be
So
one of the
you're
Unit C
asking-
members at some point.
Understood. So you're asking that the president of NATA have no teaching duties?
but- Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
And for a local of this size, with this many members, with this many bargaining units, that's not uncommon. There are plenty of examples that we will share of districts around you that have either full or half release for the union president. So for item number 14, tuition reimbursement, we're proposing what we think is a much more straightforward, simplified language for this that we think also contributes to creating a professional pipeline for TAs to become teachers if they choose to. Creating that pipeline we think benefits both parties and creates a good system of professional development internally in the district if folks want to take advantage of it. So we're proposing that a total sum of $50,000 per fiscal year be set aside for tuition reimbursement, and that this would have employees from not just Unit C, but also Units A and Unit B, the administrative assistance unit, would have access to the same fund. We made a very similar proposal at the table with the administrative assistants. So we're proposing this be a shared fund, $50,000 total for all three of those units that are interested in this, and that the rules would be as follows for access to that fund. That the maximum reimbursement per member per fiscal year would be for 4 classes at the Salem State University rate for tuition and fees. That's a local state college, which makes it one of the more affordable public colleges or universities around. It's a teaching college. It produces quite a few educators. It started as a normal school, as a teaching school back in the 1800s, and it has, again, one of the most affordable rates for classes there. They have to receive a grade of B or better, or pass if it's a pass-fail course, to qualify for the reimbursement. And if there's some other optional grading, some alternative to traditional letter grades or pass-fail, then they have to achieve the highest grade offered. The member will pay the tuition fees themselves, and then compensation will be provided in the form of reimbursement. So they'd be reimbursed for having taken the course and meeting the requirements here. They have to submit official course grade transcripts and a receipt from the institution detailing the expenses and what they paid. Reimbursement for courses will be distributed in June, and those seeking reimbursement should submit all required paperwork to the superintendent or their designee as soon as the course is completed, but no later than the 3rd Monday in May. In the event that the unit member is required by the superintendent to attend a course, the school will pay for the cost of the member's attendance at such course. C, in the event that the $50,000 is not depleted for courses, the remainder, and again, this is $50,000 shared by multiple bargaining units, the remainder may be used to reimburse bargaining unit members for registration fees at approved seminars and professional development courses leading to professional development points that are tied to the member's content area or special education, ELL, relicensure requirements taken during the school year. All requests for reimbursement will be submitted by June 1st, along with proof of attendance. The remainder of the money will be divided equally among members who submit such a request. D, we're proposing new language, again for a TA to teacher pipeline. 1, that the employer will create and maintain a teaching assistant to teacher program to support bargaining unit members in the pursuit of positions as certified educators. 2, The employer will provide a minimum of one MTEL preparation course per year, open to the bargaining unit members at no cost. 3, if a teaching assistant unit member is hired full-time for another bargaining unit position within NATA, so that could be as a teacher or as an administrative assistant, or I suppose as a custodian, then all accrued time. What?
Superintendent.
Not a bargaining unit. We're restricted from representing you, Pam. I would happily be your union rep, but they won't let you organize. Then the accrued time, benefits, longevity, and seniority will be preserved and recognized in their new role. So we just want to make sure that folks, you've done 10 years as a teaching assistant, you've earned your degree, you've gotten licensed, you're coming in now and taking on a teaching position, that there's a transfer of those benefits that you've accrued, and it gets recognized in your new position. So we think that would be a great thing. And again, help incentivize people to move into that role. In addition to that, we're also presenting a proposal around what we're calling career awards. This is very similar to language that exists in other TA and ESP bargaining units around North Andover. This is something to incentivize people to engage in professional development without necessarily being in a full-time, teaching track. There's a lot of TAs who aren't interested in becoming teachers. They love the job of being a teaching assistant. Some of them used to be teachers, and they still have a license to be a teacher, but they like the day-to-day work directly with students, especially some of the high-need students. They get a lot of reward from that role. But here's a way to incentivize them to engage in more professional development in that role, which we think is a good thing. We know the district believes that's a good thing. This would be PD they're engaging with outside of the regular workday, but that by doing so, they could accrue credits, and by accruing enough credits, they could enhance their base pay. So we're suggesting that for every 5 credits earned, up to a cumulative total of 25 credits, that they could earn a salary increase of up to $2,500 per year on an annual basis. So the language below is the process by which we're proposing that would happen. The PD activities would have to be approved in advance by the superintendent, and they would have to be related to the field of education or taken as part of a degree granting program. So for those folks who are pursuing a teaching degree and license, again, this is something to help boost and incentivize them to do that. When they've completed enough credits to earn a career award, this is just the process for how they should submit that. If it's prior to February 1st, they could receive that increase as of February 1st in a given year. So, they earn 5 credits in the fall. They take, which under our proposal here, that would be like 15 hours of professional development outside of the workday. In the fall, they could get that increase, that career award, before the end of the school year. If it's after February 1st, they would have to submit it before the end of the school year, but they would receive that the following September for every 5 credits accrued. The language below is what we're proposing as a ratio for hours to credit. We think every credit should represent 3 hours of in-service training or professional development. Every 2 credits would therefore be 6 hours, and so on and so forth. Teaching assistants will be provided with professional development on early release days. The schedule and content of that will be developed to align with district and school goals, as well as maintain relevance to the professional responsibilities of bargaining unit members. And 3, PD activities outside of the workday or work year, again, must be approved in advance by the superintendent or designee. So during the months of July and August, teaching assistants may sign up for pre-approved PD activities that will be used toward the contract year that commences on September 1st. So that would require some planning ahead, working with the district, and for the district to identify, hey, X, Y, and Z, if you do this, maybe the district's even providing it, this would qualify. And if they do that, they could gain access. So the summer months would be a good time. This language exists in places like Malden, Melrose, Somerville, Cambridge. We'll get a more comprehensive list when we dig into it further at future bargaining sessions, but a lot of districts are doing this, and it's a way to incentivize professional development and also a way to make sure that teaching assistants are being rewarded for continuing their education and improving their professional capabilities to help the students in the district. So 15 is paid holidays. Currently, teaching assistants in North Andover have 12 paid holidays. We're proposing that increase to 15 by adding New Year's Eve, Juneteenth, and Independence Day as part of their paid compensation. 16 is about vacation days. A lot of other ESP or TA contracts, in addition to paid holidays, also have some amount of paid vacation time. Right now, these folks don't have any paid vacation time, and so during, people often point out for teachers that, they have these built-in vacation schedules into their work year that's desirable. The teachers have a lot to say about that and the need for that, and people not to dive into that pool. But these folks don't even have the benefit of getting paid over those vacation periods. So when February break comes, for a lot of them, it's a break in their service, it's a break in their pay, and it's not like there's a lot of well-paying jobs that will let you work 3 weeks a year over school vacation weeks. Sometimes there's offerings at YMCA's, sometimes the school district, certainly over the summer, there's additional job opportunities in the schools. But for the most part, it's really hard if you're lucky enough to have a server job or a bartending job that allows you to work on a per diem basis, and every once in a while, a lot of other folks are babysitting, a lot of other folks are teaching music lessons, a lot of other folks are working service jobs, retail jobs, picking up shifts at the Amazon factory during the holiday months when they increase their staff temporarily. But many of the bargaining unit members just eat a loss of income during that time. So what we're proposing here is, in addition to our proposed 15 paid holidays, we're also proposing 15 paid vacation days throughout the year. And the way that would break down is in the chart below for December, February, April, and then July. A couple days in each of those periods where their income could be supplemented over that time. It's also a way for the district to compensate what we think is currently a egregiously undercompensated group of workers in a way that doesn't jack up their hourly rate to such a degree that it becomes this outlier in the town, right? So by adding paid days in addition to the actual time worked, like you already have with the current 12 paid holidays, you're creating a system where, right now they believe you get paid for 194, but you work 182. So this would, we're looking to increase that total number to 200 and something. I'm a terrible math person. Working the 182, and therefore their total annual compensation would increase without the hourly rate being affected in a way that would create an anomaly for other hourly employees in the town. Almost there. All right, 17, longevity. Self-explanatory, we think.
Is 212?
212. The 194 plus 3.
Yeah, 212.
plus 15.
Longevity, we think longevity is important to this bargaining unit. We think it's important to all bargaining units. We think for this unit particularly, longevity helps incentivize and retain staff, and districts that pay a healthy longevity sum are able to hold on to their employees for the long haul and not have the churn of people coming in and out always in these low-paying jobs. So we're proposing a new longevity chart, which starts at year 5, completed years of service. So really, I guess it would start in year 6. You'd finish your 5th year, and it would start in year 6. And this is how we're proposing it gets stepped up. Again, this is a way of compensating the bargaining unit without necessarily the sticker shock of the main salary scale becoming anomalous. But it's important. It's important to this group. It's going to be important to the other bargaining units as well. But this is something that really makes the difference between someone staying here or taking a job at Andover, which already pays their folks more on an annual basis and has a percentage-based longevity built in, so they never really bargain over it anymore. 18, involuntary transfers, similar to what Unit A currently has. Teaching assistants get moved around a lot. It causes a lot of disruption. It can be really difficult, especially when they're coming in with one assignment that they thought they had and being moved to another. This happens often at the beginning of a school year, earlier in the year, as the district's trying to settle and figure out its operations for the year. So this would incentivize the district to do a lot of that planning ahead of the following school year, at the end of the current school year, looking ahead to the following school year, and give people a little bit of security and peace of mind over the summer as to what their job's actually going to be in the following school year. So what we're saying is, like the teachers currently have, in the event that a teaching assistant's notified after June 15th of an involuntary transfer, so this is not a voluntary transfer where someone asked for reassignment, that the teaching assistant would be compensated 1 day's pay for 1/82nd of a teaching assistant's annual salary, 1 day's pay. Number 19, proposing a change to the 403B, the tax sheltered annuities language that exists in the contract. We're asking that the district agree to provide 403B, it already currently does that, plan for bargaining unit members, but that it provides a maximum of up to $500 pre-tax per year in matching funds. So other bargaining units in the district, other town employees already have something similar. They have matching funds for their 403B accounts. This bargaining unit has access to a 403B, but does not have access to any matching funds. Makes a huge difference, especially for these low-wage workers who struggle to make ends meet while they're working, let alone in retirement. 20 is around subcontracting restrictions. Been less of an issue in recent years, but it has been an issue in North Andover in the not-too-distant past, and so we're just looking for some protections here that there will not be any unlawful subcontracting out of the bargaining unit, right? That if there's a need for subcontracting TA positions or other positions covered in Unit C, that the district will, only do so in cases of exigent circumstances, and will first sit down and negotiate with us the terms, conditions, and timeline of such a request, so that we have consent and approval. This is something that if necessary, if needed, if it's happening excessively and it keeps happening, we have statutory remedies at our disposal, filing prohibited practice charges with the labor board. That's a long, arduous process. It costs a lot of money in legal fees for both parties and takes a lot of time and attention away. So we're just looking for language that says, hey, if the district thinks that we need to hire a bunch of TAs from an agency to come work in a school building because we can't fill positions in that building that we've posted, that we sit down and come to an agreement about that, and it doesn't just happen without the union's consent and without an opportunity for us to negotiate over it first. And last but not least, wages and other compensation. So the union reserves its right to make wage proposals to address ongoing economic and labor conditions, including but not limited to market adjustments, general wage increases, longevity pay, mentor pay, increases to stipend amounts, reduction of salary, schedule steps, adding steps, new educator, minimum salaries, adding new stipends, and addressing curriculum and hourly rates. We've made some monetary proposals today. We're not making a general wage proposal to you at this time. We reserve our right to do that before bargaining concludes, but our preference would be to have the committee make a wage proposal to us to begin that discussion. And the thought behind this is not to prolong things. It's actually to hasten this process. This is public bargaining, so this discussion would normally happen behind closed doors, and I think it's a good thing that it's happening in public, because traditionally in negotiations, what happens is the union makes the first wage offer to all of you, and because we are governed by Mass General Law Code Chapter 150E, which governs public labor law, and that requires us to bargain in good faith with one another, and it also requires us not to regressively bargain with one another, which means no takesy-backsies. We can't come in one day and say 3%, and then the next day say actually 4%, right? After we've come to some kind of agreement. We can't make a wage offer to you in one session, and then in subsequent sessions make a wage offer that costs more than the first wage offer we made. Conversely, you guys can't make a wage offer to us in one session and then in the next session cut the wage offer that you made to us and say, actually, we were going to give you a 3%, but now we're only going to give you a 2%. That would be bad faith bargaining for either party. We're governed by those rules. Those are good rules, and they exist for good reasons for both of us. But what that means is the union always comes in from a place of fear and a place of fantasy, because we don't want to come down to our bottom line too quickly in fear that you guys are going to lowball us and we have to keep making progress together at the table. We come in with a big giant number to kind of cover the ceiling, right? And so we come in with a number that isn't serious, we know isn't serious, but we all have to pretend like this is it and this is serious, right? And then because our number is so high, because we're afraid if we come in too low, you'll lowball us, then you guys come in and you do lowball us. And you come in and you're like, oh, well, the union, you guys just asked for a 50% raise, and so we're going to offer you a 001. And we know that's not real. You know that's not real, but then here we are. And months go by of us just playing pretend. And we're just pretending with each other. And you're offering low and we're offering high. And then eventually we finally get sick of each other enough, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, sometimes 18 months into this process. And, it's 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night and we're in this room and, the stale pizza's in the corner and, my hair is being pulled out in one way. And, I won't make any comments about anybody's hair on the other side, but it will inevitably devolve into us finally getting serious. That wasn't a shot at you, Greg. It wasn't. I was genuinely trying to yeah, sorry. So I think, rather than play pretend with each other the whole time, what we've had some success with, and in fact, another bargaining unit we're bargaining with right now in North Andover, the committee did agree to do this and has made the first wage offer, is to ask you to make us a serious wage offer from the beginning. We're not asking for your bottom line. We're not asking for your last, best, and final, but for a wage offer that is closer to the reality of what we're actually talking about, so that when we as a team respond, it can be based not just on some of the data and figures and numbers that we've started to present to you today, but also based off of a shared reality with each other about what we need and what needs to happen. Now, that being said, I think particularly with this bargaining unit, our expectations are high. They are very high because we think this is a bargaining unit, and it's not just a North Andover problem. ESPs and teaching assistants across the Commonwealth are horrendously underpaid. A lot of them are starting to address it. I think in the last contract cycle in North Andover made great strides to begin to address that issue. And our hope is we will continue to make progress to adequately compensate these workers, be able to recruit and retain folks to these positions, and be able to make sure that folks can actually make a dignified and livable wage by doing some of the most important work in the community, in our opinion. But we would look to you to help set the tone for that conversation. And we know if you make a first wage offer, it's not going to be your last, best, and final, and that there is still some dancing we must do together in order to come to wages. But we both know that getting to a wage agreement with each other is going to be one of the most essential parts of this negotiation. In order to conclude and reach a tentative agreement with one another, it's going to require us coming to a settlement on what compensation should be for this unit. So our request would be, and we can't make you, it's, you know, and if you choose not to, that will be your choice, and we can proceed in the more traditional format, and we'll come in with a wage offer. But we would ask that you make us a serious initial wage offer, and we can build a counterproposal off of that in a serious way that is hopefully in line with both of our mutual goals. I mean, I've heard the superintendent on numerous times say in a number of different meetings her desire to better compensate this group. I actually have faith and belief that the superintendent has an interest in that, and I think that means we feel kind of like safe to allow you to make the first step and for us to be able to respond to that. So we're not asking for you to give an answer in this moment, at this time, but when you consider either in caucus today or at subsequent strategy meetings, when you're talking as a team, that would be our request, is that the committee make a first wage offer to us. We work off of that offer and try to work together. And in places where we've done this, and there's been a lot of districts around you where this has been the case in the last couple of years, it has led, in my opinion, to a much more timely, efficient settlement between the parties and less fantasy at the table, less of us all kind of talking in ways where we know deep down we're not serious. You know, if we make a proposal to say we think the paras should all be given a company car, American made, of course, union made. You're like, we know that's not a serious proposal. The district's not going to buy everybody cars, but I mean, if you want to, we'd give it due consideration. But we would rather have you set the tone, and we think if it's a respectful wage offer and a serious wage offer, even if it's not the thing we end up settling on, that it'll be a way to enhance progress together and hasten things. So.
Okay. So time check, we've got 7 minutes left, 8 minutes. So I just want to make sure I just was checking the ground rules again. We said we all agreed we'd have our next 3 meetings scheduled. So one, we probably need to focus on that. We really
you don't want to take a 30-minute caucus? A 30-second
we've gone through, right?
Yeah.
So, like
a
there's no time to
15-second caucus.
Yeah.
Everybody run out and come back. I know we shared a lot, but again, in an effort rather than piecemeal these, they're all in your hand now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We may add a few more in subsequent sessions, but this is 80-90% of what we're going to propose.
Thank you. We can tell there's been a lot of thought put into this, and so we appreciate the proposal that you put forward and
Thanks.
given us a lot to think about and talk about.
Is our next meeting just confirmation March 31st? Or was that the one that you had a
That's the one
conflict
we-
with? Town election. So our next meeting is August?
April.
We're dreaming of summer.
Yeah.
April 29th?
So we proposed, didn't we propose another one We'd gone back and forth, but I don't think we had agreement,
We weren't
right?
able
Okay,
to.
all right.
Nobody got back to
No, we
No,
did.
we had,
Oh, wait.
we had March 30th and April 8th
Right.
on bargaining and,
But they
other
didn't work.
districts.
Either way, they didn't work, so we still, we need another date.
We communicated back that it didn't,
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
to Kevin.
All right, so we
So
only have one.
April 29th,
Mhm.
from 5 to 7 is our next, okay. You want to talk agenda? Because we, in the ground rules, the first four sessions are the only times that we can introduce new
I think
issues.
it's
and
3.
Read number 5.
The first 4 sessions after ground rules, so this is already one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
3 more.
3 more.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have 3 more, so we want to just make sure the agenda works so that we have some opportunities to share with you.
Yeah, I think for us at the, initially at the next session, we don't have any new proposals at this
Great.
time. We will probably want to dive
Hear
in
from us.
and discuss finances a little bit more from our perspective, town finances. So our only agenda item that day would be, a 20 or 30-minute presentation on finance. And if that changes, we'll communicate that to you if we have additional proposals that we bring in that session.
Great.
What about you guys?
I'm assuming we'll use the remainder of the time to respond to some of what we see here and share our proposals with you.
Great. So to schedule subsequent dates, looking in May,
So March is completely out? Is that where we're
I
at?
think we,
I think
So we're
March is
all the
booked.
way-
We tried and
Yeah.
everybody,
wasn't
it was already really hard for us in March. We came to the 31st and then that's not working because of the town elections and it's busy bargaining season.
So this is a Tuesday, so do Tuesdays seem to work? No, today's Monday. Do Mondays, I mean,
They generally work for me. Yeah.
May 4th?
Same time?
I'm just, I don't know.
The only
Hold
piece
on,
about
everybody.
that is that's a little close to the 29th, and it wouldn't give us time to meet in between.
Okay.
Is there any way we could do May 11th?
I can do May, we got town, are we gonna have?
Town meeting
the
anything
next
day.
The
12th.
12th? Well, we won't,
I don't know. if
we
we'll
won't have anything
the day before.
we won't have anything the day before. It'll be the meeting, okay, so the 11th should be. May 12th.
May 12th.
May 12th, get your babysitters. Yep, May 12th.
So May 11th?
I
we're
can,
looking at?
That work for you guys?
I can do 5 on May 11th.
Is it fine for you guys? I'm good with
That works for me.
Yeah.
All right, so we said we'd have 3. We have 2, so we wanna try for another one?
2 weeks after that's Memorial
Memorial
Day
Day,
on the
yeah.
Monday. But I'm available that whole week.
We could do the 26th.
May
May 26th.
I cannot do the 26th. So 27th, that Wednesday?
That
Works
works.
for you guys? Yeah.
It's a Wednesday.
Does that work for you?
Mm-hmm.
Works for me.
Okay.
5 o'clock?
5 o'clock?
All right. We met one ground rule. All 3 meetings, there we go.
Do we want to pick a June date while we're here?
Yeah?
Oh,
let's-
yeah,
That
yeah.
makes
It
sense.
might as well before it
Yeah.
fills up.
Yep.
Yep.
Back to Mondays.
Let's see, we-
Monday the
The
8th.
27th, Monday.
So we did May 27th.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the 8th, because that gives us a school committee meeting in between.
Right, does that just give us a week in between, though, from the 27th to the 8th?
Week and a half, is that enough time?
27th.
Yeah.
That'll be our last, should be
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
Okay. So June,
28th.
June
Yeah.
8th.
June 8th.
June 8th, what
Yeah, fortunately 5, sorry.
Graduation is June 5th.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Here we go.
June 8th, 5 p.m.
All right.
All right, anything else? All right.
Nope.
All right, well, thank you all
Thank you.
for being here. Thank you for your proposals, and I'll call this meeting adjourned.
There you go. All right,
Yeah.
we're done.
vote? Meeting adjourned.